Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the PCS for the summer split of 2022. I'm Mr. X. It is my pleasure to open up show alongside Mr. Clement K. Chu. Now, Clement Chu is very famous in many different worlds. I think at one point you were called Bummer 3000 or something like that. You know, there's so many words for you. However, one word that we didn't call you was CDBC Bank, who is sponsoring the PCS. What a transition. Before the match starts, we'd like to thank Right Games, Carry Live Co. and Garena for PS League operation and full production. Clement, please say thank you.
Thank you. You got to try harder, man. You got to try harder. That was the worst transition from you I've ever heard.
That's okay. Maybe that's what makes it great. But we're going to go into a game that's probably going to be better than the transition at the very least. Impunity versus Doish Gaming will be something to look forward to because, Clement, we've got a bit of a rebrand. I think we should start there, considering that Doish Gaming, previously was Hurricane Gaming, but we've had a transition.
Yeah, I wanted to stress that this is not the Alpha to Hurricane Gaming situation. This is not a rebrand. It's actually a different organization. So it's not just a name change. And with that could come a lot of different things. I think a huge problem that was plaguing Hurricane Gaming and Alpha Esports in the past was just their team setup. They always had two players in different places. This could still be the case for a Doish team. We don't really know, but it's expected since they do have two Chinese players on the roster. They did inherit mainly the same players, though. That's really important to point out. Xiao Tu, previously known as Aliao, is still here. Bang Tu and Enhao are also on the roster, so they came alongside with Hurricane Gaming, and so did Lacunae. Actually, was on the squad. Didn't play last split, but now that ICU has left, he is coming into the roster, and I think he's kind of the player everyone is most interested in because he does have competitive experience in the ECS alongside the Meta Falcon team. So that's kind of interesting. There is some connections to the PCS already. And as for their jungler, WSJ, we just don't have any information. It's WSL, excuse me. It has been just a tradition for Xiao Tu to bring in a completely unknown player from China every single split.
I feel like a lot of PCS teams have been doing that, though, even last split, right? Meta Falcon team were an extraordinary team where no competitive record, but also did have one in the back end, just not Premier League, not A-League, not even B-League, a team that played together. But there's a couple of teams that have been doing that. And I want to keep it relevant to what Doish team have done. We do have WSL, as you said, who doesn't have, competitive experience on track. How are we saying the top lane, Clement? Lacunae?
It actually is an English word, and it's pronounced Lacunae, which means unfilled gap. A very
Are you saying I don't know? Okay, so I don't know my own language is what you're essentially saying.
You're Australian, and you're forgiven.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much for the free ride. Hey, while we're looking at Impunity on the other side, we can talk about them before going back because this roster's had some major change-ups. So ICU going up against, I would say his former team, Clement, but it's not Hurricane Gaming anymore. Alex returns, Apex returns. We have LZ here, who is debuting, and Nature down in the bottom lane alongside him. Where do you want to start on this one?
I feel like Impunity, first off, this is a completely new roster. They are running a full Taiwanese roster this time around, even though they're still a Singaporean team. And I think there's immediately one huge benefit you can spot right from the player camps. They're actually in the same location right now. That was not the case for Impunity in the past. And as we know, PCS is a massive region spanning across the entirety of the Southeast Asia. So having everyone in different locations actually creates lag within the team, no matter which server you select. And the ping sometimes can go up to 100. So I think right off the bat, this is huge for Impunity. I think this is the second match of the day for a reason, because Apex and ICU want revenge. They used to play for Alpha Esports as well, and I struggle to say that they have good memories. Apex, legendary player coming all the way back from Season 4 in the PCS, the LMS, but the time he spent on Alpha Esports, he went 1-17 and was 10th place in the league. So I feel like Apex has that chip on his shoulder to prove that he's actually better than what he showed.
I mean, this is also a team that, while looking for revenge, Clement, remember that, Apex, Alex have played together before as well. A really big note here. So I feel like there's a lot to talk about from the previously known FPX jungler, but we're already in the pick and ban. The story can hold for the time being until we get into game. We were mentioning a couple of these points running into the start of PCS for 12-11. We saw the Kalista completely hovered over last game, not even touched. This time around, Jewish team had the opportunity to first pick even with the Renata still available, Clement, which is a very popular duo.
There we go. The Renata comes in just like you mentioned. I feel like Xiaotu and WSL are just bearing into my soul. It's a little bit distracting, but back on track. This is an incredibly strong duo because you can pop the bailout onto Kalista, and Kalista has the strongest AD carry trade at level 1 and level 3. The way you do it is you just have a Ren stack on one of the minions, you go in with the bailout, you pop the Ren, get the refresh, get the slow on the enemy, and then you just chase them down. Very easy to execute, extremely powerful. That is what we are gonna have to watch because it's the strongest kill lane that we have in the meta right now.
And for Bangtu and Enhao, when we saw last split, they were very big on the 2v2s. I'd say even sometimes flipping it. It feels like this suits the style here of Jewish teamers. On the other side for Impunity, let's talk a little bit about the bans, Clement, because we've rolled through pick and ban. We see them set up their 2v2. The Aphelios comes through still, despite all the 80 carries that are still up available. We don't have center available, so Zeri's gone as well. Kalista, Lucian Nami still there. They've completely gone over it for, I guess, a safer lane that has a bit of scaling potential.
Yeah, this is super interesting. When I looked at Impunity's roster, I believe that they're still going to go into a 4-1 direction, which is, I feel like ICU might be the best player from at least the records that we have. He had a very good season on Hurricane last split, even though the end results weren't that spectacular. So I feel like Impunity probably going for a very steady mid lane, steady scaling bottom side, and they're going to put all of their chips top. On the flip side for Jewish team, I read this team to be, I thought that they were going to be a much more poke heavy team. Xiaotu's best champion was Zoe, and Bangtu's best champion was Ezreal. So that was the direction I had in mind. But this time around, they're actually coming out the gates swinging, and this is very aggressive, very melee focused. It's basically a chase down brawler team that they're showing us.
Well, I like it because even though we talked a lot about tempo being denied and a lot about drafts, at the very least, we get to kind of revisit how tempo can be played. At the very least, though, Clement, for Impunity, you set it up so nicely. Well done. You read that Impunity were going to be kind of like this 4-1 team where we have Azir, we have Aphelios, and guess who's going to be sidelining here with ICU on the Jax against the Gwen. It feels like they've really set up the top to succeed.
Yeah, I love watching ICU play. For those of you that are uninitiated, ICU stands for Aurelia Carries You. He's been on the top of the Taiwan ladder for a long time, and he's great with these fighters. I think last split, his Jace was amazing, his Jax was amazing, and for me, I think Jax is a sleeper OP pick in this meta. He's, with the fights going on very long, he's almost guaranteed to get full stacks on his passive and just start wailing away at people.
That's a good point. I haven't seen too much of it back in the LPL, but seeing ICU on it, who you've just reminded me, I keep in the back of my mind thinking intensive care unit. Like, that's what he's going to do. He's going to put people in the hospital in the top lane, considering with how he performed in spring, but Aurelia Carries You definitely seems a bit more PG. Clement, as we roll into this one, you already talked about the skirmishing on the other side. I'll be asking you questions as we get into Summoner's Rift, because for Jewish team, this is a new roster, well, technically, a new organization coming through. As previously known as Hurricane Gaming, Clement, you've already established that there's been a lot of changes here for both organizations, for both teams coming through. This is a new split, and some of the teams that people are most excited for rolling in. As Jewish team enter the Rift, we're going to see how they play together. We're going to see how this all comes together, considering that, I don't know, it's a new split, a new feeling, and going up against Impunity, which could be a top team, which they already feel like on paper. It's important to establish yourself at the start of the split. Clement, what do you want to kick off with this one? Because I think the most important thing that fans remember is that Xiaotu, he was mid laner before last split, but the whole of 2022 spring, this guy was the jungler.
Yeah, he had a very interesting style, which I felt like fit how he played as a mid laner. He was mainly a tempo mid. He played a lot of assassins. He played Echo in both the mid lane and in the jungle. And he's just known for getting in your face, getting good mechanical plays off. He plays with his, he's played with a Chinese jungler throughout all these splits. So his gameplay is very much based on 2v2, and I expect that to continue to be the play. If you have two players on the same ping level in the same location, you are naturally going to gravitate towards more of a two-man game. And against the Impunity setup, where you see this is essentially a 4-1 composition, I feel like what Duish team is going to do is basically two-man against ICU. They're going to send Xiaotu and WSL and just set up traps for him again and again, and try to win the game that way.
Okay, well, it seems pretty fitting here. WSL, it's his debut game in the PCS and in competitive play as far as I know. So a lot of direction feels like it could be coming from Xiaotu. As the lane we haven't talked about, Clement, that WSL is going to be picking apart first, seems to be this bottom lane. I'm going to pause because camera's still up here. But I'm noticing that LZ and Nature might be caught out. Pillar started off here and the flash away from LZ. But I mean, it's also their debut in the PCS, and this rookie bottom lane has been caught with their pants down.
Oh, I love that play coming in from WSL. You have to remember the best time for the all-in for Bang 2 and Enhao is level 1 and level 3. Kalista is absolutely the best AD carry here. The Rend actually slows and also resets. So you essentially have two abilities against most AD carries, especially a level 1 Aphelios that just doesn't have anything. So it's a really nice understanding of where the power spikes are, and you can expect that play to happen level 3. Like, basically, this combo is pretty easy to read. They always just kind of go in at those time frames. But on the flip side, it does mean that Alex is going to get a lead here in terms of the EXP.
And he was slow to the invade, so this is given a lot of time for WSL as Lacunae, Clement. Was I saying that right? What did you reminded me what it was?
I had to check the dictionary, but it's the plural of Lacunae, so it should be Lacunae.
Lacunae. Oh my god, it's going to be so hard.
It's a word that came into English from the French language, and it means unfilled gap, which is, I think, incredibly poetic for a new player.
Yeah, it is. Very deep for a PCS game, isn't it? So.
Yeah, it is. Surprisingly so. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not even sure if the player knows, like, where the word came from, or was it a deliberate thing? So we'll find out in interviews, I guess.
We're going to see a bit more of him, though. And the top lane, Lacunae is going to get the flash out of the top lane. In fact, that was WSL. And for someone who hasn't played competitively, Clement, I'll bring the attention back to this jungler. He's making work early on this Trundle.
Yeah, I really like this because I feel like a lot of players just fall into the mindset that you're not going to get ganked on 12.11. You have so much more HP. Like, if you think about the number of auto attacks extra it takes to kill someone, almost all laners essentially have a free flash when it comes to getting ganked. And I feel like a lot of junglers are actually preying off that mentality and doing 2-minute 30 ganks and doing level 2 ganks and getting great success just because people don't expect it.
Yeah, very true. He sacrificed the CS for it as well, right? So we'll have his camps to go through, but as Alex tried to invade and failed, had to move away, you can see he's up to his last camp, hence a bit of the lead. Now, Clement, I've also Googled this to make sure as well. Lacunae. We're on, you know, I've listened to it.
Oh, it's cool?
Lacunae, yeah.
Yeah, it's French. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
That's okay, dude. That's why I had to listen to it again, because I've already asked you twice, and it's one of those words where you hear it and then it falls out of your mind immediately. Like, my attention apparently just can't hold it. So, by the way, Lacunae is down in CS up in the top side. He's 10 down against ICU, despite the flash burn, despite the pressure given by WSL. So it does feel like for now the laning phase is going relatively well, even for Apex here in the mid lane with his debut back in the PCS. Xiaotu running into this Zir naturally. Doesn't have a range, Clement, and is also down 10.
Yeah, I think the top lane is kind of expected in this matchup to go the way of Jax earlier on. As a Jax, you do have a big cooldown difference between your Counter-Strike and the Hollowed Mist coming in from Gwen, so you can abuse those cooldowns quite effectively. But later on, I think it does equalize out just a little bit. And with the flash gone, I actually expect Lacunae to be completely fine here.
It's Nai. It's Lacunae.
I'm sorry. Lacunae.
This is going to be the whole broadcast, just trying to get the name right. And then
I do want to transition us into talking a little bit about the strengths of this Impunity composition. The biggest thing here is that they have massive amounts of wave clear superiority in both their mid lane and their AD carry. So if they can keep these lanes equal, they can drag it out for sure. And when it goes to the very late game, when sustain starts to get built onto the Jax, then yes, the Jax does win the matchup versus Gwen later on. So I think if we're looking at the game plan, that should be what Impunity is up to doing. On the flip side, for a Dewish game, what they're so good at is their chase down potential. This is amazing because you have the Ren reset for the slow. You have Silas that is just naturally very good with gap closers. So their game plan is we get a catch somewhere, maybe we 5v4 and force a kill, and then we can chase down the rest of the team across the map.
And the chase down continues when Silas has so many ults that help him do that. Like Apex's ultimate stolen, Alex's if need be. I'll also say that Nature's ulti is one of Silas's best to steal. The AP scaling on Nautilus's depth charge feels so relevant. So at the very least, Clement, a great point. The chase down is what we want to see. And now that we're hitting level 6 as well, the skirmishing, the chase down potential, that can start coming through, especially as Jewish team are down on the bottom side, controlling vision for the time being, and seem to have their catch on blue and maybe even the dragon to kick things off.
Definitely. I feel like for Impunity, they know that this is going to happen just given the draft, and they're just going to try and wait it out. I feel like for Impunity, their whole goal, their best play, is probably to sit back on a couple of Drakes, try to get a kill top, and then transition it into Herald, which they are on time to do.
They've got the push out mid too. So with the vision control added in, that just seems to be the easy play for now. But Alex is backing away. Alex not sticking around for the spawn, seems to be looking for the chance to get Sheen, to get Caulfields. Sheen is in a very good spot, so I won't deny him that. But at the very least, Clement, maybe Jewish team have a bit of time here, as they also seem to be moving and how up to the top side too.
Exactly. I think they do need the extra pressure on the Herald at this point because both of their solo lanes are losing while their bot lane is fine. So transitioning the pressure from bot all the way to top. And if they get this Herald, this is actually pretty huge for them. I would consider it quite a big win on the side for Dew, because they essentially take away the biggest win condition for Impunity. For Impunity, if they don't get Jax ahead, I don't think they win the game. Their comp just has a lot of difficulty doing anything or being proactive on the map. So they absolutely need Jax to win. And even though the gold traded back and forth might be equal for Impunity, I think they lose out because of their win-con reliance.
Okay, well, it seems a heavy reliance on the Jax indeed. Herald gets picked up, the Dragon response, and even with the plating, Clement, strong statement to make, but you know, I back it with how we need to see ICU succeed. Doing so his own against Lacunae. 9. Got there. And as we see to his team, you know, grouping up around mid now as well, we can kind of see how they can advance this game, because as you said, skirmishing a real big deal. Xiaotu's stolen away the Emperor's Divide, and even though he's glitching out for the time being, still won't stop him alongside WSL from creating that strong mid 2v2 that you talked about in draft.
Yeah, I don't think Impunity have a chance in the bot lane whatsoever. There's just so many catch tools for Dewish team to chase down Impunity if they ever leave lane. So I feel like Impunity are just completely sit back, rely on ICU to carry them forward. And to ICU's credit, he's doing a great job here in the top lane, abusing the laning phase. He's already got 2 plates, even though he's down a summoner early on. So that's just how strong a player ICU is. I feel like he was our best new talent, right alongside with Shun from the Spring Split.
Oh, I mean, I couldn't agree more, right? Like, ICU, the reason the Hurricane Gaming looked strong in some of the games was because this top laner took over. So, at the very least, for Dewish team, or should I say Impunity, it feels like the cards in that bag seems to be a safe bet for their debut. However, we haven't seen it advance any further, and as you pointed out, the Herald could be a real significant factor we look at as a bit of engaged setup here by Enhal in the bottom lane, but WSL is fast approaching. They don't want Nature, and that is because Nature doesn't want them. Alex is also in the river, and that helps out, and Dewish team trying to get the ball rolling still with the bottom lane.
Yeah, you know, LZ actually doing a really good job in this bot lane. Of course, he was given 2 plates, and in that trade, unfortunately, Enhal not able to land any of the skill shots. The jungler was in position. That could have been an easy transition into turret take with the Herald nearby. They're still going to have another go at this one, but of course, this time, Impunity are well informed.
Well, with the Herald getting dropped down, hey, that's free gold over to Bank 2 and NL, and WSL's going to help with the push. Alex is moving down, but Xiao2 has an ult to steal and is moving himself, so for Impunity, they just have to accept that the rewards given over to Bank 2 are going to be easily taken. And for Jewish team, the gold might be 2k, not in their favor, but at the very least, Clement, we know that bot lane has already started rolling.
Yeah, I'll be honest, like, looking at...
Hang on, don't be honest. Not yet. Not yet. Hold the honesty for now. Enhal's caught out. The bailout used. Fate's call to save him. The safety in this bottom lane as Bang 2 puts him right back on the spot. Or rather, Enhal does himself. And WSL here in case Alex sticks around.
I feel like Jewish team are actually playing this game a little bit inefficiently. I feel like what you should do is you just ward up the bottom lane. Like, Impunity are not really going to try anything bottom side. They're far weaker in terms of the champion matchup. You just ward up, make sure Alex can't get a gank off, and you hard camp top. You just deny the win condition, and Impunity, they actually have a really hard time doing anything to you. So I'm a little bit surprised by the focus given into the bot side and how ICU is allowed to just run away with these matchups by just constantly forcing this Gwen onto low HP.
I mean, it's a bit early, but we can also talk a little bit about the fact that they do have a rookie jungler. This is his debut in competitive play. For WSL, joining the PCS, joining competitive League of Legends to a high degree. Very different playing field, but more importantly, you know, direction for Jewish team is going to be a big question because for me, you know, I didn't have the insight into the team. I don't know if you did. But Alia was a pivotal figure. He played towards ICU in the last split. It was very simple, very straightforward. Now for WSL looking for Apex, but he simply gets out of there. It's in the Zir. And Jewish team with direction, you know, it could be a big question depending on where their strongest voice comes for in this new split.
Yeah, I feel like in the past, whenever Xiao2 was on a team, he was the central member. He was the one making a lot of the playmaking when he was jungler or mid. Either role was the case that way, and he was usually the first one in as well. So a lot of initiation duties coming from him. Of course, he does have a bit more competitive experience compared to some of the newer members, and he's also just been in the PCS the longest out of the team. So I still expect Xiao2 to carry a lot of the weight right here. But, you know, coming back to what's happening here, I feel like a lot of the tempo coming from the Jewish team is not exactly what I hoped it would be. I felt like the way they wanted to play this one is actually keep a very tight control on Drake stacking and force Impunity to fight on their weak side of the map. So far, that just hasn't really been the case. I feel like for WSL, the way you should play this is, you know, when there's no objectives, you just hard camp the Jax, and when there is a Drake, you just go down and collect it. Like, I don't think Impunity realistically is going to fight you that much over the objective on bot side.
Because they're getting to this point where they're just slowly ramping ahead, right? 2,500 gold, 2 dragons now, so Impunity are controlling the flow. Now that Enhal's on top of a ward as the TP comes through, this Kalista needs to save his support and once again does so. But Bang 2 without an ulti, that gives Herald over Impunity. And ICU, Clement, he doesn't even need support. If the win condition can do it by himself, why not? Counter-Strike comes through, bops him on the head, he'll die himself. But First Blood with the extra 100 gold in his back pocket. Herald's still going to be started up, and now Jewish team want to fight, but is it too late? And already got Fates called out of there, and they gave Alex a reset as he returns back to the PCS. This ex-FPX jungler, ex-J team Clement, is out for a vengeance. He has something to prove here against Jewish team.
Oh, Impunity, just with the extra vision and the earlier rotation coming in from the support, is able to get so much off of that.
They're walking his vision again. Alex still had flash. Apex gets given free auto attacks. And Jewish team, you lost so many members. Why, Clement, are they continuing to fight?
I don't know. They just can't help themselves. They're continuously face-checking, and Impunity, I've got to give it to the rookies here in Nature. He just landed 3 back-to-back critical hooks. They're not easy to land, and that just set them up for a massive lead here. 3-1 plus the Herald. That's going to snowball Jax and ICU to incredible heights here. And I just feel like we're starting to see a runaway in a rare fast game in 12.11.
Well, I think it's also important to note, Clement, that even though Impunity, we noted their conditions, if Dewish team give it to them on a silver platter, then the whole of the map is viable as we watch the play again.
Yeah, beautiful stuff here. Both the top and the bottom do get vision advantages. ICU uses the drop very well, and he backs off, then thinks better of it. I'm just going to go in for the trade. I'm going to get your Ignite, your First Blood, get that tower down as well. And at this rate, Silas cannot match him in that bottom lane. This is a very uncomfortable position for Xiao Tu to be in.
He's 40 CS behind his own mid laner. 40 CS behind is WSL in his debut game against Alex. A 2-0 on this Viego. Once he got the reset in the fight, you can see how badly it went for Jewish team. It's only going to get worse from here, folks, as we see those items coming in strong. We see on the other side, Jewish team only have 2 mythics available, and I think for Impunity, those 4 members are already working on item number 2, and Clement, to review what you said in draft, with the 4K gold lead, Impunity looking comfortable because of the scaling, right? Because of the team fighting, even though the Jax hasn't been set up per se, it still feels like the lead is going to be significant enough for now to talk about.
Yeah, and you can see the problem here with you is that they just don't have the wave clear to outshove and force towers against Impunity. They have to catch them out in rivers and skirmishes, and that's hard to do when the enemy has a split pusher that can leave lane faster than any of your side lanes. So I think they are getting caught into a very precarious position, and what they have to do is they need to use that Fate's Call aggressively. So far, Fate's Call has always been used defensively, and we have not seen the initiation power be unleashed. They need that to get a catch.
I mean, hostile takeover as well from Enhao while you're at it. Xiao Tu with these ultimates hasn't been significant in any of the trades, so it does feel like, yeah, for Dewish team, it's just been them getting caught out, and in crucial moments like in front of the Herald, it's given the gold swing over to almost the 5k mark now. Clement, Impunity have a 3rd dragon that they can threaten here from Dewish team. They are stronger at this point, or at least still feeling the strength, as the pick in the bottom side might show so. Apex and Alex, AA batteries rolling on to Lacunae, and down he goes. Kill number 3 over to Alex, and 30 seconds still dragon. That is an easy setup.
Yeah, Lacunae, definitely showing some rookie tendencies right here, getting his gap closer burned, just wave clearing, and it's caught with his pants down. I do want to say that a team that is almost pure melee, like Dewish team, doesn't have the best comeback mechanics. Once you get out-damaged, once your natural HP from being kind of like a melee champion wears off, then you're running into full damage Aphelios, full damage Azir. It gets much, much harder. I do rate this as a team that does need to get some mid-game kills. And if they don't, I think this game is kind of already out of hand.
I mean, when we're looking at Night Harvester on Xiao Tu here for his first game, it kind of feels like as well, like the items now in his inventory can't be used to a full effect because he's not going to be able to buy time in the fights. He's not going to be able to get the skirmishes that we thought Dewish team always wanted. There's so many things that have come through and just not come into fruition, Clement. So many lanes that were set up nicely, WSL burning flashes, the early game looking solid, but Impunity have held strong, and they haven't had to hold strong for long. They've got 3 dragons under their belt before even we had to start talking about scaling for Apex on Azir, for even the Viego snowballing ahead. Like, I mean, LZ, his flash got burnt earlier in the game, but now he's up almost 80 CS. Xiao Tu's ulti's good. It's a 2-man. The skirmish finally begins, but onto nature. They won't get the reset. Instead, the hostile taker from Xiao Tu. It's great. In fact, Enhao's one to burn it out, but meanwhile, LZ has got the Shuriken army out, ready and available. Jewish team's debut looking like a bit of a flop here as Impunity are smurfing on these kids, Clement. A triple kill already to the new AD, and Apex over the wall making it a sure thing with a full-blown ace. This is the new Impunity.
Dude got the drop, but they didn't pack the damage. Nature with a beautiful stopwatch, able to get out, flashes away, doesn't even fall down, and then ICU collapses from the back. Absolutely nowhere to go right there. I think, unfortunately, 2 just started something that they couldn't finish. The idea was right. They needed a catch. They got the vision here. but I think the target selection was a little bit off. It opened up onto the support mainly, wasn't able to finish off the kill whatsoever, and this is just open season for LZ and Apex. They aren't even touched at all in this fight. There's nothing for Bane 2 to salvage when he comes in here, and that's a perfect ace for Impunity. So I gotta say, I'm loving this Impunity squad. For me, they are the biggest dark horse this season.
Yeah, they are. Some big names returning to the league. Some big names have been around for so long. Alex is one of them. Apex we talked about, and we didn't mention the one player that's not actually starting here today, that does have a big track record. Arn is on this roster, who, Clement, we know has played with the likes of these guys before.
Yeah, Arn is absolutely legendary when it comes to the LMS history. You know, he was part of the squad that made it the furthest ever. But we have a fight on our hands.
But how long is it going to go for? The needlework hits no one, and WSL's already at half HP. Apex is coming in red hot with the Emperor's Divide, but maybe the flash stops him in his tracks. As with Baron buff, Jewish team were trying to slow it down, but Clement, I think it might have inadvertently sped up the process.
That was a pretty good opportunity for Jewish team to go in. Here they go again.
Another one. Depth charge stolen away by Xiao2. Once again, the AP Stallion coming in red hot, but LZ blasts him. And Alex helps out over the wall. The jungle, a massive throw as he turns into something else fierce, and Bang 2 with a good bailout, but unfortunately it sets up yet another reset. Alex is 5-0-2 in his return back. A good sight once again, Clement, and experience seems to be trumping over Jewish team in this opening game.
Yeah, Jewish did play that with a lot of hesitancy. It was very clear that Impunity were giving them a 5v3 chance, but they didn't pull the trigger. They just held on to the Fate's call, and then they went in again, which ended up being disastrous. Nobody able to follow Xiao2 in onto LZ. It was a 1v3 situation. He gets taken out as easy as that, and now Impunity just beating out Do with fewer members is going to be able to sweep through 3 different towers at the same time. We'll watch this again on the map, and the key thing to remember here is that they actually had a 5v3 on the previous fight, but they didn't fully commit. They go in now, and you know, there's just a lot of reaction time for Impunity right here. They beat back the 4v3 with quite a lot of ease. I just feel like Bang 2 needs to be a little bit more aggressive with that Fate's call to make things happen at the start.
But as you said earlier on, the reason this draft feels so good is because for Jewish team being behind, you know, you mentioned there's so much melee damage, so much close quarter combat. You know, Callista's not the biggest range AD carry we know. We have Gwen, Trundle, Silas. You know, Renata probably has the biggest range out of anyone. And for Jewish team, every single time they have to walk into combat, Nature's there standing. What a game to play Nautilus into, considering you're so far ahead. Every hook seems to be designated to land. And Impunity are just giving the kills in their face every single time.
I need
like
to see. Oh?
What do you think? Do you have time? No, you don't. 2-man shove back from Apex, and the flank perfect. It goes golden. He buys a lot of time, and once again, the bailout does nothing. A good response from Xiao2 with the stolen ulti, but once again, the damage isn't there. And Hal and Bang 2, the last remaining, but the Counter-Strike flash forward from ICU finishes off the job. The heal gives the movement speed, and LZ 2-shots him. Clement, this is getting hard to watch. It's 16 kills to 2, and I think finally Impunity will be able to end this one with their debut in 24.5 minutes. All I can say is that this roster revamp looks pretty scary for all future PCS teams facing into.
For sure. Welcome the new Impunity to the PCS. A completely revamped roster right here with completely new results. Last split, they were 6th place. I expect them to be able, in my own predictions, to overtake Beyond Gaming's spot at 5th. That is, I'm just going to put that out there. That is what I expect to happen with this new roster. On the other hand, for Duo's team, I felt like they came in with a very solid draft. They had some good moments in terms of the laning phase, but the team fight coordination was very, very lacking. And I felt like Nature just kind of outshone Enhao and Bang 2. I feel like if you look at all the team fights, they really needed a lot more engage coming out from Fate's call and the handshake. We just didn't see that.
I mean, the successful bottom lane was really the only successful bottom thing there for Jewish team. Clement, we talked a lot about the Jack's win condition, but it quickly evolved into some of these skirmishes going wrong, into the skirmishes looking even better for the team that had the Azir, had the Jax, had the the Aphelios. Like, it didn't make sense if you looked at it on paper, but it's really rough to watch a game where, the setup's easy, the win conditions are there, but Dewish team didn't really know how to pilot, and I feel like starting through the jungle is a nice place to start because flashes burn early, but there's no follow-up punish. There's no follow-up to these lanes. There's no denying of the Jacks. Instead, trying to get in the bottom lane when LZ and Nature quickly learned that they could play back.
Yeah, there were a lot of weird things going on with the jungler position for sure. I felt like this was a Drake stack game 100%. You have a superior bottom lane. You have Kalista that gives you another secondary smite. So you just try to stack that as much as possible, and you just throw all the Heralds top. That's basically your win condition. Like, Impunity, in terms of their picks, cannot contest in the bot side whatsoever. Yeah. So it's a little bit unfortunate that I felt like Dewish team, they let too much go the opposite way in the first Herald fight, and that's just where the game just kind of blew away.
I mean, it's also like kind of in front of the Dragon. Do you remember WSL and the rest of the bottom lane go for the blue buff invade, go for the camps? Dragon sits there, they have to reset because Herald's coming up. So I think timing a big part, as you say, and not there in time while they try to take the trade. It's like, well, yeah, first Herald, okay, that's not bad. But as you say, a Drake stacking game with a Kalista Renata, like, you have the 2v2 in the palm of your hand. It's rough to watch, but also really good from Impunity. I think we can highlight that it was a solid game where mistakes were punished almost immediately. Alex was someone who was nice to watch back in the driver's seat, considering that, this guy's got a lot of experience, and it showed for his debut game back here on his new team.
For sure. I think those were expected qualities for you to get. These are players that have been picked up by other regions and looked into seriously. What surprised me the most was definitely this bottom lane, because we didn't really know what to expect coming out of kind of the rookie duo right here. And Nature, I felt like, blew me away. There were so many good hooks coming from this guy. The Nautilus play was absolutely amazing. They lost an early flash in lane, but were able to equalize so beautifully as well. They got to their mythic item points first. They never died in lane whatsoever. So, the biggest questions for me in this bot lane for Impunity were also answered, and maybe that's why we don't see plays on this roster. I think mainly it was because they wanted to move the team probably to Taiwan, which is why their Singaporean players were kept. But Blaze was a huge star player. He was a great player in his own rights, and maybe this is why that we're seeing kind of a new duo here.
Yeah, so maybe it'll take a. I'm kind of just thinking on the side of Fiducia. Maybe it'll take a bit of time for them, but yeah, for Impunity, like the change around has been so nice, and it's only one game. We got to see how they go up against some of the top teams like the PSGs, the CFOs, depending on who the top teams are this split, J-Team, Beyond Gaming, DCG. But at the very least, a very nice showing, and I think we kind of got what we expected, Clement. Even in the top side, like ICU still showing he's a terrific player, still taking the 1v1, kind of giving us that flair that we were hoping to see once again in summer.
Oh, for sure. ICU I think is a long overdue star. But the MVP actually going to go into Alex this time around. That's kind of an interesting choice here. Does have the perfect KDA to go along with that. Always very important when it comes to MVP selections is just those stats. Had a heavy farm game, and I think this just goes to showcase why Viego is such a strong pick on the meta, because you can have a very quiet early game, and he has one of the best scalings, hands down. He has the resets in those team fights, and because of that extra HP, even when Viego starts fights, he can actually survive to contribute later on as well, which is why I think Viego is the second best pick, right alongside with Wukong.
You get the resets, and straight away you're taking over, as we saw in those skirmishes as time went on. A great game for Alex to debut. Congrats to his MVP. And Clement, for me, all I can say is that, Impunity truly lived up to the name of their excitement. All these changes that came through the brand new roster lived up to what could be a top 5, top 4 team, depending on how we see the split progress.
Yeah, for sure. I think the goal for them is definitely you want to finish the split on the upper bracket. That's definitely within the realm of possibility. Maybe
too early, but then again, hype's going to be built up some way. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. When we come back, we've got to remember that it doesn't end here, Mr. Clement Chu. It'll never end here. why would it? Because as we come back from break, as I'm buying my time and telling you what's coming up next, Mr. Clement Chu, it's Beyond Gaming and Meta Falcon Team. Maybe not as exciting as the first one, but still, Beyond Gaming return. We're going to see if Meta Falcon Team still have that edge.